Hi friends, welcome to another episode of the Rifle Chart channel. You know, I've been sitting here for years and I've been reading all of the posts that you guys have been putting on my various videos across YouTube. And I've never really felt like we had a good kind of a information exchange. Mainly because of the amount of time that I have available to me to actually answer questions and comments, which I get just as much of these out of this exchange of communication off these forums as probably you do. And so I really do appreciate it. Some of the posts for a bunch of my videos have been very, very thought-provoking and interesting. And some of the life experiences that people have shared with me over the years as a result or byproduct of one of my videos has always been fantastic. So I thought maybe what I'd do is read some of these very entertaining posts and really this just the richness of the people from across the entire globe that I've had the opportunity to communicate with. For example, a chap here from Bosnia, you know, talking about the Yugoslavian Model 98 rifle that they were used for sniping purposes during the Civil War and so on. I mean, so what I'll do is to have this kind of two-way dialogue with you guys. Is I'll read a few of these comments and questions, and I'll just respond to them. Why not? Let's give it a go. So there's a chap by the name of Ciro, and he says, "I am from Bosnia Herzegovina, and I have exact same rifle and 30-06 caliber, Zrak scope and Zrak mount. It is my main hunting rifle. I shot many hogs and foxes with that rifle. I love that rifle. Scope is made before war in Yugoslavia and is strong like Zeiss. Amazing quality. The mount is new manufacture, Zrak Bosnia mount. Mine is Yugoslavian mount named M70, exact for this rifle, and it is indestructible." Well, I would certainly like to see the mounts that you're referring to, Ciro. I mean, with the Yugoslavian Mauser that I have here that was in that video, unfortunately that YouTube censored, so it is available for free on Patreon to see, is one of the things about these rifles, these Model 98 Mausers, is, you know, just how incredibly rugged they are. Bit of oil there. And I mean, blood and guts. I mean, these rifles are just blood and guts. I mean, whether it's a Lee Enfield or Model 98, it just never ceases to amaze me just how friggin' accurate they are. And these were kind of considered to be your budget hunting rifle of the day. I mean, here's a Brno Zed G47. I've been wanting to show you this rifle for a while. I finally got my hands on it, just for a short temporary period of time here. But it is just a gorgeous rifle. Just high quality manufacturing. I mean, look at how nicely swept that pistol grip is. You know, Czechoslovakia. Whether it's your Zastava M70 Mauser, or from the former Yugoslavia, or from today's Serbia, to yesterday's Yugoslavia, is that they're still shooting today for a reason, right? They're still shooting today for a reason. So thank you very much for your post, and I agree in many ways. I have so much more shooting to do with that Zastava M70. Looking forward to showing you some of the results. Comment here from Ed. I have to tell you, I just got back from the range with my Mossberg Patriot Synthetic 375 Ruger, completed a reduced load of XX grains of accurate A57-44 under a 235 grain spear. Wow, reasonable recoil, accurate, at least in the 50-yard sighting and cloverleafed. I may not post the 200-yard results to maintain my dignity. 6.4 pounds weighted rifle with 1 pound of scope and rings. You need one. And I will say that I get you. I hear you when it comes. You start talking about reduced loads. One of the things that that I appreciate though is that sometimes you just need to have a high recoiling rifle. Here's the Marlin 1895 and 4570, and with a specific load, it's a 400 grain Jet Hunter bullet. I think it's IMR 4198 that I'm running for a charge, and I'm shooting that 400 grain pill out of this 4570 at just over 1800 feet per second. And it is not fun to shoot. But I realize that there are certain rifles within my collection that I need to be able to deploy against dangerous wild animals, 500, 600, 700 or more pounds in size. And I need to be able to shoot that at close range quickly and effectively. I need to hit the target every time with a bullet like that in order to stop it. Whether it's a stopping shot or a killing shot, it doesn't matter, so long as I at least slow it down. So that's my choice, right? That's why I totally understand the whole deal around having a big bore rifle. However, in my experience shooting 375 H&H mag, 338 Winchester Magnum out of a Ruger paddle stock Ruger M77 Mark II, was that I started to develop a flinch that was so significant it took me about 2 years to untrain myself, and I still constantly have to manage that flinch because of the heavy duty recoil that some of those rifles bring to the experience. So it's just a natural inclination for people to respond that way in advance of knowing you're about to get hurt. So I have a tendency to I don't shoot this rifle for fun. Right? I'm shooting this rifle as for a defense mechanism. It's the best caliber, in my opinion, that is available to me at a reasonable price. That's not going to put you in the poorhouse by running it. So, cheers, folks. That's good. I hope this format is okay with you guys. One of my favorite rifles is my Remington 7600 and 30-06. I've had it forever, and it's one of my favorites for deer hunting. Hopefully Remington has turned the corner and will once again produce the excellent firearms they're known for. Yeah, that's a really interesting rifle that I would love to spend more time with. Had an opportunity to get a Remington 7600, and it was in 35 Wellen, and ooh, I hummed and awed, and ooh, I wanted it. I just love that pump action. It's just so fast. I put it on par with a lever gun for speed, and whether you run optics or open sights, because most of the ones that I've seen have had open sights of one type or another. But it's just a fantastic, fast moving rifle. So I mean, there's not a lot of information out there on the 7600. I wish there was. I'd like to know if there's any kind of quality thresholds that 7600 advocates have noticed on those rifles. But what I do know is that they shoot reasonably well for a hunting rifle, and they're very fast. So I would love to spend some time definitely with one of those rifles. I'm a real believer. Donald says, "Ouch! I just realized our Remington was in bankrupt city, except for a couple of 870s and a Model 14 and a Model 81 and a Model 721 and a couple of older Bolt 22s. I've never owned anything Remington." Well, it looks like you've owned a lot of Remington. He's owned one new 870 and that's it. Talk about a stranger in a strange land. I do know what's wrong with me. That's the movie Dune reference. Did you know that the father of the drummer for the Police Sting Dune tie-in was the CIA chief in the Middle East? And they say conspiracy theories are fake. Well, yeah, so that's the drummer for Police. His name was Stuart Copeland. And he recounted a very brief story in an interview, I think in the 1980s, where he was basically tagging along with his dad, in between different cities, visiting here, always moving there, always on the move to the next city, always on the road. Now I wonder how that actually kind of manifested itself into Stuart Copeland as he grew into an adult, and his desire to be on the road, like that's the normal home for him. However, what I do know is that the two of those guys, Sting and Stuart Copeland, the drummer, they just detested each other. they could only be in the same room with one another for so long before things would start to flare up. I recall in an interview, Stuart Copeland basically attacked Sting in the middle of the interview and like full fist fight, and you have to wonder how that came to be in his character. I couldn't be in a band with a guy like Stuart Copeland. Fantastic drummer. Like, I absolutely adore his drumming. Just don't think he's kind of a team player. Their personalities didn't work out well. So Jeff says it'll be interesting to show how this rifle plays out. I bought a Remington 870 2 years ago. This is what got to do with the Remington 700 LTR video that I recently put out for this beautiful little guy right here. I gotta tell you, I'm pretty impressed with it so far. Pretty impressed with it so far. I'm not going to go into any details. That'll be a different video for another day. But be interested to see how this review video plays out. He bought a Remington 870 2 years ago. Quality is so poor and the action is quite rough. I see it going away or becoming a project in the near future. Undecided as to what its fate will be. No new Remingtons for me. I do have a Howa 223 and it's a tack driver sub-minute angle rifle. Bought the barreled action, replaced the trigger with the Timney, built my stock, glass bedded and free floated it. It's a purpose-built coyote rifle now. So wow, really impressive. It's just the knowledge and the experience that subscribers and commenters have so far as their craft and musketry, their ability to work on these rifles, to cut themselves a new stock, and bet a rifle into it, use it, make it into a precision rifle, using their own labor. That's pretty fantastic. It's just a very, very interesting group of people that comment on my videos. Really, really respect you guys. You're definitely in the middle of the craft, and your knowledge definitely shows in your posts. So another question here. It's actually from Michael McGurdy, and he says, just wondering, do you own or have used any Ross rifles? I'd love to see you do a video on that. Now, what I will say is that when it comes to the Ross rifle, is that I should say it has its own scope of practice around it. Like, what I recommend you do, if you're really interested in getting to know more about the Ross rifle, and you're right, there's not a lot of information out there, and there needs to be, because there are a lot of Canadians that died on the battlefield shooting a Ross, that died because of the Ross. And there are a lot of Canadian soldiers with a bolt through the back of their head, because they reassembled their bolts, they cleaned up the mud, they're in the pit, they're in the trench warfare, there's bolts flying over their head, it's chaos. And they have a stoppage, so what they need to do is to disassemble the rifle. They probably got a bucket of muddy water there just to get the mud out of it. And in the heat of the battle, they're reassembling their bolts incorrectly. But it will still fire. But the lugs are not engaging, okay? And so, in this environment, it was just the perfect mix of this issue. Now, There was I think the Ross Rifle Company came out with a bolt pin system where I think this was for the Ross Model 10, the M10, and so that you couldn't reassemble it incorrectly. It could only be assembled one way, but so many of them still don't have those pins, and so I highly recommend that you find somebody who knows these rifles upside down, inside out. If you want to move into that direction and learn about that rifle, is that you learn how to do it properly, especially when it comes to the bolt reassembly. You know, it's a terrible part of our history that as Canadians we you know, they're a great, fantastic target rifle. I believe even the Russians for a little while adopted the Ross, I think the M10 receiver, and used it for their biathlon teams, right? Chambered in 7.62 by 54R is strong enough, but it's fast and they're accurate. They're more of a target rifle than a battle rifle. Okay, so that's my recommendation, at least anyway. It's I'm moving back and forth here because I got to try and grab the mouse so I can flip the questions here. I'm not a Remington guy per se. This is C-Steel, though I do own a Marlin 336 SS, which had much issues with the lever action. I sent it back, they repaired it, was still unhappy, thus the receiver was scratched, and I know that I didn't scratch the receiver. They did. I have since stripped all the internals, polished and sanded where necessary. The action is so much smoother, sadly. I just have not had the chance to take it out and fire it much. It was the very first rifle I ever bought, and it was sad. And it was sad because of the quality issues. So obviously, you know, gun owners are very cautious people. Once bitten, twice shy. We get a product that it's just shoddy workmanship. It's poorly fitted. That they're not paying attention to the fine details. I mean, you know, it's once bitten, twice shy. We will not go back. We will not be a repeat customer, right? So that's one of this whole thing with Remington coming out of bankruptcy protection. So Remington purchased Marlin, right? And very shortly after these rifles stopped being JM stamped for John Marlin, I think it's John Marlin, they became REM stamped because he had new owners, owned by Remington now. REM stamped Marlin rifles, and lots of people have been complaining about them. I mean, it's you know, it's just the wood to metal fit. Then you see the spaces on the other side of the stock there? Right, just stuff like that. You know, it's not smooth when you put your hands over top of it. You can feel the ridge of the wood. You get splinters if you really press on it hard enough. Quality of the milling is, there's lots of tooling marks. You can't see it, but maybe you can. But there's lots of tooling marks in there, and it is rough, right? And you want these rifles to be fast. Now, I've had no issues with failures to feed or anything to that kind of a degree with this rifle, but I mean, just look at the checkering. And that is awful checkering. Not crisp at all. It's just been rounded off and rounded checkering. It's not the old Marlin that I remember. So, but it is. When a firearm owner goes out and he spends his hard-earned cash, right? It used to be that back in the old days with my great-grandpa, he was around 1913, the logging industry, Cowichan Lake, Vancouver Island, big, massive trees. You know, and they're logging using trains, railway access only, to log all these areas. And way back in the day, and those guys would spend 6 weeks worth of wages just to buy one rifle. One rifle, 6 weeks of wages, right? Again, this is information that one of my viewers commented on recently. And it really kind of flashed up, you know, he's totally right. I mean, 6 weeks of wages is a tremendous amount of money in today's terms. Okay, so, but back in the day, that's what they had to do if they wanted to go get their Model 92 Winchester, which we still have in our family. My great-grandfather's rifle. 6 weeks of wages to buy that thing, 25-20 Winchester centerfire. And that was a big deal, right? He just, that was his caliber for shooting black-tailed deer. And if a black bear came in, into the homestead, he'd have something to deal with. But 6 weeks of wages, because a rifle back then was, how should we say, a little bit more than just a gun for target shooting. It was part of your life. I mean, you defended the home, and you fed the home, and you clothed the home because of furs, using a rifle. It was an exceedingly important piece of kit for any homesteader. So, but now we can go out and buy a Remington for $500. $350 for a Savage Access, a used Savage Access, right? It's pennies compared to back in the old day. But yeah, but you know, a rifle goes south on you, and you're not satisfied with it. Gun owners do not forget. And so, something that piece of history that seems to keep repeating itself with us: the Winchester Model 60, Post 64, right? Quality is so important. Your reputation is everything. Okay, so G. Lewis with the skull portrait says, great optic choice. Picked up a Savage directly as I'm not willing to take the chance on Remington. Wow, there's so many people out there that we're not gonna. I'm gonna take the Remington and I'm gonna give you a review on it, and I'm really praying that it's good. But so many people, again, once burnt. Hope to hear good things about the rifle. I agree. Yeedle31 Arms Channel says, Rifle Chair, have you served in the Army? So, what will give you that idea? That's how I'll answer it. Okay, moving right along. Okay, I'm going to move out of the Remington's comments because there's a lot of people that are not happy with Remington. Okay. Okay, so did I hear that your Enfield Enforcer is for sale? Why? It's a nice rifle and hard to come by these days. Are there accuracy problems with it? So the Enfield Enforcer is, well, I'm not going to talk about its status because this is YouTube and it's not the right place to discuss things like that. But what I will say is that it is an incredible rifle, and I don't know if I can do it or not. Even if I was trying to sell it, whether somebody actually offered me what I'm asking for it, whether I'd be able to do it, because I know it is the only rifle of its type that I will ever see again. There will be no more Enforcers for me if I choose to sell it. And so something that needs to be thought about is just the one guy was very interested in it. He was going to be giving me a Coyote, a Prairie Gun Works Coyote, in exchange for it, and a Mark IV Leupold optical sight. An incredible rifle. I mean, I would love to own it. Honestly, I would. But I could buy as many Prairie Gun Works Coyotes as I wanted, and there's only this Enfield Enforcer is one of 300 that remain in the world. It is an incredibly rare rifle, and it shoots incredibly well. It'll do one hole groups with quality information, with 168 grain Sierra Match Kings, you know, the gold premium ammunition that Federal puts out, is that I was constantly printing 5/16 inch groups, 3-round clusters. It was just, you know, I try not to shoot too much of that ammunition because it's like, what, $70, $80 a box now. But man, that match ammunition just seems to shoot in everything exceedingly well. One of my objectives for that rifle was to try to duplicate Radway Green. Radway Green is kind of the match ammunition of the day, and you know, 7.62 NATO's spec brass. I think it's 155 grain projectile. Hornady puts out a full metal jacket boat tail that is 155 grains. So there's some great testing opportunities with that. However, yeah, we'll just leave it there. So it's still in the program with the Enforcer. Come on. Okay, so I was fortunate enough to work on the new hospital in Queen Charlotte's for a few months. I was able to explore only a little bit of the islands. This is talking about the Hide a Dagger video. And I got to the museum. There's unreal history there, and the scenery is beautiful all the way around. It's totally unmatched. The locals are very hospitable and kind. I will go back one day and explore everywhere. I wasn't able to while I was there. Great video, but where's the dagger? Well, the dagger is in the Skidegate Museum. It's essentially a Haida museum. It's fascinating. The exhibits are fantastic. There's not a lot of information for every single one of those exhibits. But I think maybe that's actually a good thing, because what it does is it lets your imagination kind of run wild just a little bit, trying to, what did they use this for? And so the Haida dagger was a dagger. The blade was about that long. I mean, I am not kidding. It was probably a foot, 12 inches, 14 inches long, and made of very, very, let's see, kind of a high carbon steel, and very thin blade handle, which had rotted. There were probably wood grips on it. Looks like they just wrapped some leather, and there was a thong on it, and then you wrap the thong around your hand while using this and it said while using combat in case it became slippery. Well, what's going to make it slippery? It's going to be blood and gore, right, from stabbing and attacking and defending, from going to war. And it would also be used as a digging implement for things like clams on the shoreline. I don't think you have much in the way of actually quality slicing, with that kind of a blade. It was a dagger. It was two-sided blade and big. And yeah, the Haida were a warrior nation for sure. Basically, the Vikings of the Pacific. Yeah, I highly recommend Haida Gwaii. It's just a beautiful place. And they have lots of Sitka black-tailed deer. They're basically a miniature. They're a smaller mule deer, basically, but they were introduced in the 1920s. They're actually an invasive species, right? And there's no natural predation other than black bears in Haida Gwaii. Anyway, we'll leave it there. And there's all kinds of comments from people who have just recently discovered the channel. Excuse me, and they like what they see, and I'm glad you like what you see. It's there comes to be kind of a crossroads where you have to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to make movies that not movies, but videos that your audience will enjoy, or you're going to make a video because it's something that you personally find interesting. So I'm of the latter category. If I'm going to make a video, it's because I think the subject is interesting. I frankly couldn't care less if my audience thought it was interesting. That's how I have to do it. That's how I have to think about it. Because if I think about it the other way, the quality of the videos are going to go down. I think you've seen that from a lot of YouTube channels. They just don't have the endurance. You just have to be interested, in certain things. And I don't make videos to try to sell a product. I don't. It's because I'm interested in that product. And if it didn't work out well for me, I'll tell you. If it does work out well for me, I'll tell you. And if I find out later that I'm wrong, I'll tell you. It's about the free exchange of information. And that's what we do here in these forums when we're talking to one another. I do appreciate it. I appreciate your subscribership. Let's have more conversations like this in the future. Brad signing off, and as always, may believe up.